Welcome to the Kingdom Corner. I'm Andrew, and with me, as always, is your favorite podcaster, the man who is living out the dream of the winter wonderland as the snow falls down behind him as we speak. Your favorite person, Mr. Dale Baker.
What's happening, Andrew? Happy Victory Monday to you, my friend.
That's right. Happy Victory Monday to you as well. I mean, even if it was some of the backups, some guys who don't get much playing time, a win against a division rival, we will take anytime we can get it.
Anytime. I think it was good to see, and also helps those guys put some tape on get some tape on the field, just for the other teams that maybe they're not playing next year. You may not be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs next year, and so I think that helps as well. And so for those guys, and so glad we could rest our starters and go into the week of the playoffs, right. Wild card weekend.
That's right. So Chiefs are now going to have the Saturday night matchup against the Dolphins. So we're going to be hitting that just a little bit about our initial thoughts on that. We're going to be talking about some of the things we got right, maybe some of the things we didn't get right as we predicted this season. We didn't predict near as much this year as we have in the past, but that's all right. We still got a few to go over, and we're going to talk maybe about some of the other playoff matchups and some of the teams that did or didn't get in. So stick with us as we jump into this episode.
Mahomes looks to throw it. Pump faking right side. He wants it. A comeback. It is caught by Kelce. Touchdown! Kansas City. The game is over. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions.
How about those Chiefs?
All right. So Dale, we just played against the Chargers in this last game. Mahomes was sitting, Travis Kelce was sitting, L'Jarius Sneed was sitting, Pacheco was sitting. I mean, we could go through the whole list. We had offensive linemen, linebackers, people in every position that were sitting. So what's your initial thoughts about this Chargers game?
Yeah, the initial thoughts was, well, I'm glad we got the victory, even though it was a pretty ugly game. Thank goodness for the strip sack and then the scoop and score, because either that we're losing that game. So that's a wild thing. But we got the W, so that's I think all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, man, Charles Omenihu, the guy who had the strip sack there, he has been playing on a tear as of late. Yeah, I mean, he had to sit out the first 6 weeks of the season due to personal conduct stuff by the league. Then he kind of started getting into his groove, and man, he has found his groove at this point.
Yes, he has. And that's good rolling into the Super Bowl, the playoffs.
Yeah. Let's not jinx ourselves. Knock on some wood here.
Knock on some wood there. But rolling in the playoffs, you want that energy and you want that to just continue momentum. And so I always have mixed feelings about resting players and not resting players, especially with the veteran class that we have. I think you can rest and they kind of know what to expect and know what to go into the game. How they need to play. So,
going into this game, we kind of talked about whether they should play or not. And I was under the mindset that they should play because they've been out of rhythm, especially the offense. And the more I thought, you know what? I don't know how much of a rhythm you're going to get into or what you're going to do that you haven't seen all year by one game against a team that's playing for nothing other than just because it's a division rival who's been playing poorly all year. So I kind of switched camps a little bit, but I still think some of them should have played, like MVS. I think he should have played. Not necessarily for the rhythm aspect, but just for the practice of catching a ball into your hands and running. I mean, maybe it's mean, but I just think it's true. Just get him out there. Say, hey, I don't want you to get any yards after the catch. I just want you to catch the ball and show me you can do it. Do that 5 times and you can come out. And so I would have done something like that. And, maybe that's a little, junior high-ish, but man, you got to do something to work on just seeing the ball in. So, but with that being said, the wide receivers, McCole Hardman had his best game of the season so far.
Had made some plays, was out there running around. And so I know the year he was with the Chiefs when we went to the Super Bowl, he was banged up and hurt, even was in the hospital for a while. And so I thought that was a big thing for him to kind of like look healthy and to get going. And so hopefully he can be a weapon here Saturday night on Peacock and be a weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's right. Well, since you brought up Peacock, we have to talk about it. So
I was gonna say we got to talk about Peacock. It drives me nuts, man.
Are you in? So from what I understand, if you're in the Kansas City metro area, it's still going to be shown on local network. So are you within that local network area?
I am within that local network area.
All right. Well, I'm right outside of it since I'm closer to Wichita here.
Yeah.
So I'm more in the Wichita area. So I am quite positive that I will not be getting that channel. So Peacock is. So my question for you about this is, how do you feel about all these streaming services now exclusively having the games?
Yeah, I think it's pretty wild. Pretty wild. I mean, I understood the Monday Night Football, growing up, you had to have ESPN or ABC or whatever was on forever, and then ESPN got the rights. But I get that. And then like Prime, I think everybody has Prime. So I don't think that's like a big deal because, you're like the Amazon shipping and everything like that. I mean, like, yeah, no doubt I have Prime. Now I get football. But usually the Thursday night games are terrible. But this Peacock thing, this is crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, like, and even when the Monday night was on ESPN before, like usually, not always, but usually they even had shown it on ABC simultaneously, since they're kind of sister networks there. But sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead with your point on Peacock.
The Peacock thing is this ridiculous because they don't offer anything else but the streaming.
Yeah.
And so
it's only the NBC network shows. That's it.
Yeah. And then my question is like, what if you have the NFL Plus?
I believe it is being shown on there. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you had okay.
I heard on NFL Plus it is being shown.
All right. So that would be my question. So
my question would be, I don't have it, but some people have the Sunday ticket package where they see every game. So would that be included on that or not? I'm kind of leaning that it probably isn't because it just seems like it's exclusively on Peacock and the NFL Plus subscription as well. So
I think Mike Tirico said exclusively on Peacock.
They said exclusively many times yesterday. So I'm not a big fan of it because it's just more services they're trying to get you to subscribe to. Right. And so these networks or streaming services, however you want to call them, they're buying out the rights to these games because they know that people love the NFL so much that they will subscribe to their streaming service just for the game. And then they hope they'll get hooked on something else and keep it. Right?
Or forget about it.
Yeah, or forget about it and just keep being charged every month.
Yeah. So, which I wonder, like, what the sports bars are going to do, like B-Dubs and like some of the other local bars that show TVs.
They'll buy it. I'm sure they will buy it. Yeah,
they have to, right? You have to.
You can't claim to be a sports bar and not show a playoff game, right?
But then my big question right now, I mean, I know we're talking way too much about Peacock, but my big question right now is like, has Peacock run the test that they can handle all these streams? You know what I'm saying? Like, are they going to overload their network and crash it? Or is there going to be some weird delay? Or, because like Amazon early on, there was like this weird delay with like the announcers and the play.
Yeah.
And so I think like, so has there been tests?
Right. And we're not talking about a regular season game to test it. We're talking about a game that matters, right? A playoff game here.
Yeah.
And but hopefully the NFL has talked to them about this. Hey, there's some issues we saw with Prime when they started. You might want to address these things. So hopefully. I don't know that they did, but hopefully they did. But as much as I don't like it, I do think that's going to be the way of the future too. I don't think it's even a matter of if, but when eventually they're even going to have a Super Bowl on one of these streaming networks.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not saying it's going to be this year or next year, but it will happen. And before long, you're going to have, 7 subscriptions to different platforms just to watch all the games.
What if we had one subscription for all those subscriptions?
I think that's what they call the Sunday ticket, my man. Or they might say, subscribe to NFL Plus and you can get them all.
Yeah. Or I think I'm describing cable there. If you just had all the channels on all your subscriptions on one channel on one box, and then we're going back to cable, like there's just so many. So which I'm all for, like different. I'm just surprised Apple. I know Apple does soccer a lot, and but so it's a matter of time before Apple TV gets on.
Don't you worry. They'll be jumping in here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these networks. I mean, Netflix is going to figure it out eventually. I know they don't do live streams usually, but they're going to figure it out too and say, hey, we want a little piece of this too. Yeah. So I think all those streaming networks they're not going to all get it, but they're all going to try to get it.
Yeah. So the other big news in the game yesterday was Chris Jones getting his sack. and the $1 million sack. So what did you think about
$1.25 million for one sack?
What did you think about Chris Jones playing into the third quarter?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. So I know a lot of people didn't like it. I'm okay with it as long as he doesn't get hurt, right? And I know that's easy to say,
right,
and hard to actually predict because some of those injuries you never plan to get hurt, right? So they happen. So I was a little bit nervous, kind of like Andy Reid was. You could see on the sideline they were having discussions after every series, and Christian was like, "One more series, man, one more series." And Andy Reid's like, "I don't know. We'll see." So I'm glad he got it. I'm all for guys, getting whatever they can get. So glad he was able to do that for himself and his family. But at the same time, I'm also very happy that he did not get injured in the pursuit of it.
Yeah.
And because he didn't get injured, I'm okay with it. But if he would have got injured, I'd be a totally different mindset and person about this right now.
Yeah. So definitely, I thought maybe they talked about maybe giving him the first half. Like, hey, you got the first half. After the first half, you haven't gotten it. Hey, sorry, but no, it was cool to see him excited, and probably his last regular season game as a Kansas City Chief.
Yeah, probably so.
More than likely.
Well, we don't have to dive too far into this right now, but since you brought up, I mean, we talked about it a little bit before, but are you on the camp of keeping Chris Jones or getting rid of him? I know I've asked this before, but I know thoughts can change, so I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not in the camp of getting rid of him. I don't want anybody to hear that because I'm pro Chris Jones, but I'm also pro Kansas City Chiefs. So I want what's best for the team. So if Chris Jones still wants his $30 million for 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is, like, man, it's been a good ride. Right. I thank you for the Super Bowls. Thank you for being your personality and everything like that. But like, what's good for the team is not paying big bucks like that right now, especially when we're paying our quarterback and we got some real needs on offense as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you on all points. So first off, once again, not for getting rid of Chris Jones. I'm for him being on the team as long as he is able to be on the team. Yeah. But you can't handicap your team for one guy unless their name is Patrick Mahomes. Exactly. Right? And I'm not saying that Chris Jones isn't a great guy and isn't even an all-pro, first caliber player at his position. Yeah. But he doesn't impact a game like a quarterback does because the quarterback touches the ball every play. Right. And Chris Jones has a huge impact. I'm not taking anything away from that. But every play he doesn't. Patrick Mahomes, every play he does because every play he touches the ball. And so that's the difference between those two. And the other side is I think this year is proven now that we have an elite defense. And we'll see how the playoffs end up. And we'll talk more about that, in our next episode about what we think is going to happen. But I think from what we've observed so far this season, the Chiefs might be better with a high caliber offense and a mediocre defense than the other way around.
Yeah.
I think that they can, with Patrick Mahomes, they can win in shootouts. Whereas if it got into a shootout this year, I'm not sure that the Chiefs could keep up.
Right. Yeah. If our defense has a bad day, I think it would be hard. I think we're done. We're cooked. And so our defense has to play elite, in which they are playing elite, and which is amazing. But I think I add to your point, like, we can play as long as we get a couple key stops on defense. Yeah. I think that's huge, or make them settle for field goals in the red zone, whatever it would be. But I think, a high-powered offense is going to be the key for this long dynasty to continue.
Yeah, right. And I'm not saying that you don't need defensive players or defense at all, because you do. Yeah. You just have, but you don't have to have necessarily a top 5 defense. If you have a top 20 defense, even as we've seen before, I think last year we were number 23 in defense, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But in key moments, you have to be able to get a stop here or there, get a sack. And, and that's what the defenses have been able to do for the Chiefs over their past Super Bowl runs, is in key moments, even in the 49ers game, right? Chris Jones knocks down a couple passes at the line of scrimmage, right? Against the Eagles. Nick Bolton I guess he didn't really force a fumble, but he picked up a fumble. Yeah. And ran it back for a touchdown. So you have to have those kind of moments from your defense, even if they're not a top 5 defense. So
right. And Brett Veach and his team has done a great job of drafting these young defensive players that have hit. I mean, his defensive side has hit. The offense has not hit. And the offense is hard to get right. And so, I mean, and I don't know if it's like just development with the coaches, but they are developing these guys quick and fast, and they are playing hard. And so on the defensive side. So,
yeah. Well, and as we talked before, picking up a Spags defense is not easy, even for veterans. They even said it takes them a while to get used to it. Justin Reed, who's been in the league for a while, to his second year with the Chiefs, said, man, this year I feel like we're able to actually move and do things because I'm understanding what we're doing. Right. Yeah. And so a lot of these young guys, we have some their first year too, but most of our guys are at least second year players. So second year in that system, learning it and knowing it. And now they're playing at an elite level because of it. So, man, hats off to them. So, but since you brought up some of the young receivers and offense stuff, so let's look at a few of our things that we predicted to start the season, right? Okay. So some of these were a game in after we saw at least one or two games, but they were very, very early in the season. We didn't have as many this year as we've had in the past, which is fine. Maybe next year we'll try to jump in with a few more. But so first off, we both predicted that the Chiefs would go 14-3. So we were 3 games off.
Well, I can think of 3 games we should have won.
Oh, maybe at 4. Least 3. I mean, we should have won the Lions game. Kadarius Toney gave a pick 6, which basically won the game.
Yeah.
The Bills game where Toney lined up offsides, where he scored a touchdown as a lateral from Kelce. The Eagles game where MVS dropped a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah.
The Raiders game where we gave up 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds. I mean, there's at least 4 right there. Yeah. And there's probably more that I'm missing too. So
yeah, I think the Packers game and the Broncos game were probably 2 games we should have lost.
Yeah, and we did. So.
And we I mean, we had no business winning. Even though not the Denver game. The Denver game we kind of got blown out, but the Packers game we had a shot to win, but we had no business taking that win.
Yeah,
we got outplayed all game.
All right, well, that covers all the games we lost. So the 2 we should have lost and the other ones we should have won. So
there you go. But hey, we would have been pretty close.
We would have been close. We would have been even off by a game if we would have won those. Should have been 15-2, really. So, but either way, so we got that a little bit wrong. But here's we both picked Sky Moore as an over/under for 680 yards. I think it was 650. We kind of went up to 680 or something. But we both said that he would get at least 680 yards. You want to take a wild guess how many yards he got this year?
He got 235 yards.
That is very close, 244.
Oh, man. I promise you I did not look. Promise I did not talk. I was just going
I can vouch for you. I did not tell you that beforehand. So you were within 10 yards. So
I was like, I even thought that maybe was too high. 235. I was like, man, that's way too high because he was always just getting those little flats. But no, 244, huh?
Yeah. Well, he could have had a lot more if he wanted to drop some.
Well,
same with Toney, though. Toney could have got a lot more. How many yards do you think Toney ended up with?
I'm going to say, let's see.
We didn't predict him, but just since we're talking about it.
He was hurt a lot. I can't remember any big plays. He did have, I'm going to say, let's see, 208.
169.
Oh.
So a little bit further, but not too far off either. So still within 50 yards of that. Yeah, that's a guy that, both those 2 guys are guys that we both expected and predicted to have big seasons this year, and neither one panned out. I mean, between the 2 of them, they didn't even get it to 500 yards.
Man,
so
it's tough.
That is very tough.
And Mahomes still got to 4,000 yards. How?
Yeah. And he didn't play in the last game.
Yeah. So that's unreal.
Yeah. So Mahomes ended up with 4,183 passing yards. So if we would have just caught half of the drops, first off, the drops that they are counting as drops, first off, I'm thinking that they are missing some drops somewhere.
Yeah.
Because they said Sky Moore had 3 drops on the year, something like that. And I thought, I don't know who believes that, but that stat is wrong.
Right.
But even if you just count the stats that they say are drops, if they would have just caught half of those, I mean, Mahomes is going to have a 5,000 yard season. They're going to have at least, I'll be conservative, at least 3 more wins, right? At least, if not more. they're going to probably have at least 30 more first downs. I mean, they're probably going to average at least, let's say, 5 more points a game, right? Just all these things could easily be happening if he just simply catch the ball. I'm not even saying catch it and run. I'm saying just catch it. Don't even run. Just catch it and go down. And you're going to have some highly increased stats for everybody on that. So the other thing we predicted was who would be the Chiefs' leading wide receiver this year.
Okay.
So, Dale, I think you might remember who you picked, right?
Yeah, I think I picked Sky Moore to be the Chiefs' leading wide receiver because he had such a great Super Bowl and was going to come out in the second year and just take the league by storm.
Yeah, I mean, he had his first touchdown as a pro in the Super Bowl. I mean,
exactly.
You couldn't get a better touchdown to start your career ever. And here we are thinking he's going to make a big jump, but unfortunately, he was not our leading wide receiver this year.
No.
So,
who did you have?
Well, I will tell you, Dale. This year, I picked Rashee Rice as my leading wide receiver this year.
Oh man, look at you!
Yeah, so Rashee Rice was the leading wide receiver. Let's see where
he had like 930.
He had 938, right? So
38,
Travis Kelce had about 50 yards more, but for wide receivers, he led them all. So, and Sky Moore is, well, let me tell you this. Isaiah Pacheco had as many receiving yards as Sky Moore did. The exact same even.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Sky Moore was 4th in our wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So he was behind some guys who were not wide receivers, such as Noah Gray, Isaiah Pacheco, who tied him. So,
and then what about
a wide
Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I mean, he had a bunch of receiving yards, didn't he?
Well, he had some towards the end, but he didn't.
Oh, he didn't.
He didn't have a lot of snaps at the beginning of the season, so he ended up with 188 yards. So even in his
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. So you are correct. He did. So he had more than Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore and had less receptions than both of them.
Man. And less drops.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you this. He had as many receiving touchdowns as Kadarius Toney did. He also had as many receiving touchdowns as Sky Moore did. So all of them had one. So anyway, some of the things we got right, some things we got wrong. So hopefully we'll do better next time. But hey, we got at least a few of those right in there.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick. Go ahead.
We did get the Chiefs winning the AFC.
We did.
Okay,
we did. Got the AFC West. Yes.
Yeah. Even though they were supposed to finish third, they were supposed to finish third. But
that's
they finished
what everybody
first.
Said.
Yeah, that's what everybody said. So they finished
I'll
first.
say the same thing we said then. Don't knock the champions off until they're actually knocked off.
Right. So it'll be. I think the division is going to get a little tougher next year.
I think you're right. I think the Broncos are going to be making a big step forward.
Yeah.
Depending on who the Chargers get, they might make a step forward. So it depends on who they get in as their GM and head coach. The Raiders, who knows?
It's up in the air. I don't know. They got to do something. They got to do something with quarterback. But other than that, they got a good team. So, but yeah.
Well, I'd be okay if they didn't do anything at quarterback. So
yeah,
I'd like to go on a longer run through the AFC West here instead of just 8 years.
Yeah, we need to go at least 12.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that.
Yeah,
be
4
fine
more.
By me.
Let's go 4 more years.
Yep. The other guy in the game yesterday who I thought really had a great game was Malik Herring. I mean, that guy was all over the field. He was making plays left and right. So had a lot of guys step up. Blaine Gabbert is not the guy who I want to see on the field very much. I mean, I'm glad he's there to help mentor Mahomes. But if Mahomes goes down, I'm not going to have very much confidence that they're going to move the ball at all.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like, if you're a Mizzou football fan, you kind of knew what you were getting with Blaine Gabbert. And so, watching him play in college and then kind of keeping an eye on his career, he just throws that ball with so much velocity all the time. And so I think some of those hard and fast, which is good in points, but sometimes you got to let off and just toss it out there. So, and let him run with it.
Yeah. I mean, and to that point, Justin Ross made a great catch early in the game, high pointed it on the ball that should have been probably taken a little bit off of because nobody was around him, but Blaine Gabbert rockets it in there and it's high, and Justin Ross so went up the ladder and got it, came down with it. So good to see him making a few moves. Hopefully, and I'm serious about this. Hopefully, he will see more playing time this postseason than MVS will.
Oh yeah, I'm serious too. Yeah,
I'm dead serious when I say put Justin Ross in for all of MVS's routes because he can at least catch the ball. I mean, you're not going to end up any worse. I can tell you that.
That's so I wonder if it's like a playbook issue where he doesn't know the playbook as well yet.
Yeah,
just because of injuries. But you would think, man, he'd be studying and get on the field. But
yeah, you would think with all the injuries, he had plenty of time to be looking over this playbook. So you know what? I can't be out there practicing. Let me just flip through this thing real quick.
Yeah. So he's got hands. Just for whatever reason, they haven't got him on the field, and so we'll see. Hopefully, like you said, I'm with you. Hopefully, they get him on the playoffs or on the field in the playoffs and do some damage. One more thing I want your thoughts on would be Travis Kelce was 16 yards away from getting 1,000, which would have given him 8 straight seasons with 1,000 yards, which is unheard of.
Would have been the same number as straight AFC West titles.
There you go. Yes. And so, I mean, that is a huge milestone. Just, I mean, for a tight end to be able to do that. But as we talked about, Travis Kelce elected not to play and to let the other guys play. And so you think Travis Kelce should have played, or are you okay with him just because I mean, 8,000 yards or 1,000 yards, 8 straight seasons is incredible, but now it's 7,000 yards 7,000 yards for that. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, he already has the record for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons by tight end, but selfishly, I wanted him to get it. I'm not saying that he wanted it, but selfishly as a Chiefs fan, I want him to have it, just so the Chiefs can say once again, it's like, hey, we had a tight end with 8 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, right? So I would have loved him to get that just for that reason. But the other side is, man, I think that is such a team move on his part. Like, I really do. So if you've watched that series or show on Prime, Bye Bye Barry, about Barry Sanders, it kind of goes through his career. And if you know much of his career, you know that there's times that Barry Sanders even chose to sit out when he was a few yards away from breaking a record or hitting a milestone or whatever it was. And he said, no, I want you to let the other guys play. And Barry Sanders was never about personal accolades, right? I mean, looking back now, he probably is glad he has some of those. But in the moment, he's like, man, I just want my team to win. Like, that's what he wanted. He wanted his team to win. And so I thought it reminded me a lot of that when Travis Kelce decided that he didn't want to play, because all the reports from what I've read says that it was his decision not to play. So he's could have gone in there and said, you know what, I'm going to try to get these 16 yards, maybe got a little bit bruised up in the process. But the other side, he probably looked at it and said, you know what, it's going to be better for my team if I sit out and get myself healthy and right for the playoffs. So I think that was a great character move by him.
There you go. And there's some speculation that maybe Travis Kelce's a little banged up. He's not the same. And so maybe another week of rest would have been good for his body and be ready for those playoffs, to your point.
Well, I'm sure he is. He gets, you watch him, even when he's not catching the ball, they're beating him up at the line every play. So I mean, I'm sure he's a little banged up and bruised, and he's getting a little bit older now. Was he 34, I believe, right? So he's the same age.
He's a young man. He's a young man. Be careful.
He is a young man. But for a guy who's getting beat on every play, it takes its toll, right?
That's right.
So he's the same age as Rob Gronkowski. And so, Rob Gronkowski, he's been retired for 2 years now, 3 years. Well, first he retired.
Man.
And then he came back. And so he's the same age as Rob Gronkowski.
They are the same age?
The same age.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that in a million years. I would have
you would have thought that Gronk was at least 5 years older, right?
At least.
So because you watch Gronk his last few years, he was not moving well. He was slowing down because he is the same way. He's going to beat up on every play and taking hits, and he is the same age as Travis Kelce.
Wow. All right. Learn something every day, folks. Stay in school, kids.
That's right.
Learn something, be a learner. So there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, if nothing else, I think that just goes to show you the toughness of Travis Kelce too. And that, it's a tough game for anybody to get through and play for a long period of time when you're in a position that gets hit on a lot of plays. So I'm sure he is a little banged up and a little bruised, but having that game off might do him really good.
Yeah. Definitely. Very good. All right.
All right. Well, let's look at real quick. We're not going to go through all these games, but just some of the playoff standings and what ended up, who ended up getting in. So, and maybe some teams that surprised us. So I'll start with one. I really thought that the Jaguars were going to easily handle the Tennessee Titans to get into the playoffs. But instead, the Titans dominated that entire game. Like the Jags had a few plays here and there, but for the most part, the Titans dominated that game, and they kept the Jaguars out of the playoffs.
Man, yeah, definitely. And I know, obviously, we're not about excuses or making excuses, but I know Trevor Lawrence has been banged up, and I think that shoulder is really bothering him. Some of those throws just looked uncharacteristic for Trevor Lawrence. But, yeah, you would have thought they would have had a better game plan to come in there. I mean, we're talking about the playoffs, winning or going home. And so, I mean, you think you'd put everything on the line. Just didn't seem like they had the juice or the energy they wanted to win. And so that was kind of odd, but the Titans, they came out and they took care of business. And so my biggest thing was from the weekend was last night's game with Miami and Buffalo. I couldn't believe my Buffalo handed that game to Miami several times. Yeah, and they did not want to take it for whatever reason. So Tua's off. So that was a strange game. I know Buffalo would have got in because of no matter what. But it was all about seeding. And so now Miami plays, if they want to get to the Super Bowl, 3 road games, and which is really, really hard to do.
Yep, it will be. So unless by some, well, man, I would say, is there the only possibility they would have a home game is if them and the Steelers both make it to the AFC Championship game. That'd be the only way, and I see that as very unlikely.
Yeah.
So plus, as we've talked before in the past, so the 7th seed in the playoffs is, I believe this is just the 3rd year for it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
And so that hasn't been long that there's been 7 teams on each side of the bracket in the playoffs. And so far in the previous 2 seasons, or first 2 seasons, however you want to say it, the 7th seed has never won a game yet. They've lost
until this weekend.
I would say so. There's always a chance.
There's always a chance,
but
because they're matched up with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, and so this might be the year. So, and I say that because the Bills tried to give games away, as you pointed out in the Miami game. They tried to give that game away, and Miami just wouldn't take it from them.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. So
definitely.
The other thing that kind of surprised me a little bit on the other side, on the NFC side, was the Eagles. I feel like they just don't want to win any games anymore.
Man, there's something wrong. Dude, there's something wrong. I don't know if it's the locker room. I don't know what it is, but something's not right over there in Philly.
No, something is very far from right. So they lost to the Giants 27-10.
If I'm not mistaken, I didn't watch that game, but if I'm not mistaken, their starters were playing in early on, right?
Oh yeah, they were playing.
Because I saw AJ Brown got like dinged up.
Yeah, because if they would have won and the Cowboys would have lost, they would have jumped back up to the 2 seed.
Oh,
and so they had their starters in. Same kind of thing as the Buffalo and Miami game, right? So they were playing for the 2 seed as well, and so they had all their starters in, trying to get that 2 seed. And even with all their starters in, they could not slow down those New York Giants. New York Giants. So the Giants, not a great team this year. Coming into yesterday, they were 5-11. So 6-11 now. The Eagles were 11-5 coming into that game. So you would think on paper, once again, paper doesn't always tell you everything, but on paper, the Eagles should have easily won that game, and they could not do it.
No. So the AFC is the Ravens, who get the bye.
Yep.
Buffalo Bills at number 2.
Yep.
Kansas City Chiefs at number 3.
That's right.
Houston Texans at number 4.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
If the Jaguars would have won, they would have won their division yesterday.
Yeah.
But instead, they lost and they're out of the playoffs. Didn't even make the wild card. Crazy.
Number 5 is coming in at the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
So Joe Flacco, and then you have the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's your AFC bracket. So how many of those teams were in the playoffs? Can we do the math ourselves? How many of those teams were in the playoffs last year opposed to this year? So Houston was not.
No, they were
Pittsburgh
not.
was not.
I don't believe the Browns were last year either, correct?
Yeah, no, they were not. And then Ravens were not.
That's right, because Lamar was hurt, so they didn't make it either.
So there's 4 teams, I think. And Miami were they in the playoffs last year? I don't think so.
I don't remember.
I would only say the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs are the.
I'll tell you. I just looked it up.
All right, here we go.
All right, so last year's playoffs, I'll do some seeding from 1 to 7. So it was the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Chargers. Oh, the Ravens did make it. The Ravens were 6.
Ravens did? Okay.
And the Dolphins were 7. So that was the AFC
4.
side.
So 3 new teams that have come in to the playoffs here.
Yep.
So there you go. Wow, that's fun.
All right. So last question for you here is, who of these teams on the AFC side were you the most if the Chiefs were to have to match up against them?
All right. They were to it's so crazy to think about seeding and wins. And I'm surprised that even
I'm just saying, just even take seeding out. Just if the Chiefs had to play any of these teams, no matter who it is, who would you be the most worried about?
The most worried about is the Ravens. I mean, obviously,
by far,
because
it's got to be, right, because they have a great defense and their offense is humming too.
Yeah, and I think you have said this on the podcast multiple times, but I will just echo it this year: is that we struggle with running quarterbacks.
Yes, we do.
And I know our backups were in yesterday, but even what's his name, Sticks, ran all over us. He was the leading rusher for his team, and so it's just for whatever reason we cannot. I mean, we can downfield coverage all day, but it's like when that quarterback just takes off, we are so focused on the wide receiver or the tight end that we have our backs to them, and so so we're gonna have to make sure if we get to the AFC Championship against Lamar Jackson, we have to play a lot of zone.
Yep.
For eyes on him.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. The other side is when we play Lamar Jackson, we do pretty well against him. So when Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson face each other, Patrick Mahomes is 3-1 against Lamar Jackson. So the Chiefs, now I will say most of those games are very close games. They're not like blowouts by any means, but even so, the Chiefs, for the most part, have found a way to win against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And so the 2 teams that I'd be the most worried about are the Ravens, followed by the Browns, right? And and the Browns have a good defense. And Joe Flacco, since he's come into the league the past 4 or 5 games, whatever it's been, he has led the league in passing yards. So lots to go into this game and to these games to come up. So, but the Dolphins are who we got next, so that's who we're going to focus on.
All right, there we go. I looked at the line, and again, we'll get more into this, but it's 3.5 right now. The Kansas City Chiefs.
All right,
our favorite by 3.5.
Yep. All right. Well, make sure you like this podcast, share it, comment, leave us a great review. That helps us to get this out to more people and into more places. So that really does help us. And I'm being serious about it. Please do it. Go right now, like it, subscribe to it, leave a review. Please do so. It helps us out a whole lot. So thanks for joining us in this episode of the Kingdom Corner. This episode is brought to you by Oh Hey Threads, where a portion of every purchase goes to support missions all over the world, one super soft tea at a time. We'll see you next time right here in the Kingdom Corner.